Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to film my July wrap-up. I read 16 books in July, and that's all the stats I have. I think I'm going to try to maybe do a mid-year stats video, and I would try to do better on my stats for August. And I'm just going to tell you the order in which I read them in. And yeah, let's get started. So 16 books, that's really good. And my first book that I finished in the month of July was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I actually started this one in June and didn't finish it, but I finished it on the 1st. And I rated this one a 4 stars. It was just a little bit too much for me. I really liked the first half, but once you get to the second half, there's like this big party, and I was not really a fan of the random people that show up at the party and you get their point of view, and I was just not a fan of that. So that's why I kind of bumped it down a star. And then it does involve a lot of cheating for sure. That really annoyed me, but that's just who that character is. Other than that, I would highly recommend this book, especially if you have read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I would definitely recommend reading this after, and it's just a great summer read. Then next was books that I read for Summerween, and first book that I finished for Summerween was None Shall Sleep by Ellie Marney, I think. I don't have the physical copy with me. I already unhauled it, so that should tell you something. I didn't really enjoy this book, unfortunately. It was more like FBI detective than I wanted it to be, and that's probably my own fault for not doing some more research on it. But to me, the cover is more like slasher. At least that's what it looks like. This is a YA book about 2 characters, and they are in college, and the FBI wants them to help with some serial killer cases and wants them to go ahead and interview some serial killers, but they are like more of the young adult age serial killers, and they won't talk to anybody at all. So they were thinking, maybe these people will talk to somebody of their own age. And then the next book I read for Summerween was also sort of a disappointment. That was The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. That was also a 2 stars. I listened to that one mostly on audio, and it just wasn't for me, I guess. I don't know. I just I don't really get the hype around that book. It was pretty good. I would recommend it for kind of a weird horror book, I guess, and glad that I did finally read it. But yeah, just wasn't for me. And then the next book and the last book that I read for Summerween was Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I gave that a 3 star. Would recommend it. It was pretty good. Another book that I just didn't think was exactly for me, but still pretty good, and I definitely want to still read their other book, Lost in the Neverwoods, and probably will here soon. And then after Summerween, I read a romance book, a young adult romance book, and it was We Can't Keep Meeting Like This by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And I really loved her book Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. And then I really enjoyed the X Talk, so I was very happy to read this newest young adult book by her. And it is about this teenager, and her parents have a wedding planning business. I don't even know if I gave you the stars. I would say like a 4 star. But her parents own a wedding planning business, and it does deal with mental health. Rep, she has OCD, and then the main character, Guy, he works with his parents at, I believe, the catering business, so they meet a lot at weddings, and it just starts their fling. Not as much like enemies to lovers as much as Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. I would say they're kind of more a little bit enemies and then friends and then lovers, and it was very, very cute and would recommend that one for sure. And I think I only have 2 or 3 more books to read by that author, and I definitely will, because she's becoming a favorite author for sure. Then next I binged this audiobook so I could join the live, and that was for the book club that was hosting it, and that was, I believe it was the Winers Book Club, and that was Darling by K.A. Ingram, and I gave that 3 stars. It was a Peter Pan retelling, and it was pretty good, but like I said, I binged it pretty quickly, the audiobook, and it is that kind of book where you can do that. I think it's only like 6-hour audiobook or something like that. So very quick read for sure. Would recommend if you want something quick like that, and if you are into Peter Pan retellings. I just wish that it wouldn't have been like an exact retelling with like the names and everything. Like her name was literally Wendy Darling and Peter Pan, and so yeah. And then there was also like a twist where the book went like super dark, and I wasn't really expecting that. But overall, I do recommend that book, especially if it's like towards the end of the year and you are worried you're not going to hit your goal. I would recommend that as a quick read. And then the next book I really enjoyed, it was Dial A for Aunties. I rated that like a 3.5. I might even bump it up to a 4. And I would definitely recommend this if you liked Finlay Donovan is Killing It. That's about the same rating that I gave Finlay Donovan. It's just like not, to me, those books like aren't worth the 5-star hypes, but they're still very good. And Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutinto, I think is how you say it. It is about a girl, and her mom always sets her up on these blind dates, and this blind date, and her mom just like really wants her to get married and really wants her to find somebody. Well, this blind date that she goes on goes very badly whenever he ends up dead. So she asks her mom, what should I do? And she calls up the aunts, and unfortunately they all are in the wedding business and they have a wedding to go to. So there's the body of this guy in the trunk, and they figure out what to do with the body and with her aunts. And then they have to do that while they're working this wedding, and also at the wedding is her ex-boyfriend from college who she really loved. And so it's a little bit of a romance, a little bit of a cozy mystery. It's a very different book that I would recommend if you like those 2 things. And the next book that I read was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, and I rated this a 4.5 stars only because the beginning, just a little bit of the beginning was a little bit annoying, but I would recommend this book for sure. Highly recommend it. Perfect summer book. And it is about Piper, who is 28 years old, and she's like a social media influencer. She goes to a lot of parties, and she just doesn't take life seriously. And then she goes to this party with her boyfriend at the time, and he breaks up with her at the party. She is devastated, and he says some things to her that really stick with her, and she goes ahead and throws this really big party after the breakup. And then her stepdad finds out and is just really fed up with how she's acting, and says, you know, you need to grow up. So her father passed away whenever she was younger, and he was from this town in Washington, and he had a bar there that he left, and the stepfather sends her to there, and for the summer, I think it was, for the whole summer, and she meets the fisherman Brendan and falls in love with him slowly but surely, and it is definitely a little bit of an enemies to lover. He does not like her at first, but they do get closer and closer. I don't want to give a whole bunch away, but I really did love him as a character. He was a little bit like annoyed with her and things like that in the beginning, but once you got to know him as a character, I really, really loved him. So yeah, I cannot wait to discuss this pretty soon with the Sugar and Spice book club. So if you haven't read, or if you have read this, definitely join in the discussion, because I'm excited to discuss this with everybody. Then after that, I read Torn by Carrie Ann Cole, and I rated that 4 stars. And I don't read a lot of like indie romances, and I really want to read more. And this was my first by that author, and it was a pretty big age gap romance, but I really did enjoy it for what it was. It was just a good time, and now I want to read all of her books. I am very excited to dive into more from her, and also dive into some more indie romances that I can get my hands on. After that, I read Forget Me Not by QB Tyler. I've seen this one recommended a lot. I rated it a 3 stars. It was an amnesia romance. This couple is literally on the verge of getting divorced. The divorce is almost final. He gets in an accident and he loses his memory, and he thinks that they are married, and they've been married for, I think it's about 5 years, and that they are happily in love trying for a baby. Unfortunately, they're not. Obviously, they're almost divorced. It does have miscarriage in it and cheating. He did cheat on her, and that's why they are divorcing. And so I would definitely just make sure that you know those 2 things before you go into that book. And to me, it was really fun, like, you know, reliving their happy parts of their marriage, and also seeing them fall back in love and work through things. I really enjoy like the marriage and trouble romances for sure. And then after that, I read Survive the Night by Riley Sager, and unfortunately this one was a disappointment to me, but not as much as a disappointment like as to other people. I still rated this a 3 stars, so I would recommend you read it. Very mixed reviews, so you might like it more than me. And it's about Charlie, who her roommate died in college, and her roommate was murdered, and she ends up just not doing good after that, and she really just is not doing good with school, with life. She's done with school, so she wants to go home, and she has nobody to take her home. Her boyfriend can't, and she doesn't want to drive anymore, so she goes to the rideshare board, because this is the 90s, and she finds a guy to take her there. And let's just say she might have gotten in the car with a serial killer, but she does not know. And she also, since she is going through all this stuff with losing her best friend, she does have some mental problems to where she does not know like if some things are real or not. So I would definitely like to know that if you're gonna go into this book for sure. but I would recommend it if you like Riley Sager, and this is my last book that I've read from him. I have read all of his books. And then next I read The Stranger in the Mirror by Liv Constantine, and I did not like that one. I was really, really enjoying it up until about 75%, I would say. And then it was not good, not good. It just used some things in it that are just not realistic, like kind of like behind her eyes a little bit. I don't know. It just wasn't for me, for sure. I do not like unrealistic things. But up until that mark, I really enjoyed it. So, I don't know. It was another kind of amnesia book where the main character, does not even know where who she is at all. So she just instead made up a brand new life for herself. And then her husband comes back and is like, "You are my husband. You've been missing for 2 years. I've missed you." And then the story goes from there. And then I was really reading a lot of amnesia books this month because I ended up picking up That Weekend by Kara Thomas, and I gave that one a 3 stars. This was a YA mystery book, and it was more like Lake House kind of vibes. And instead of going to prom, I think it is, her and her friends went to this lake house, and she ends up missing and is found, but she has no idea what happened, and her friends were never found. So then it kind of goes through that process. And I would probably recommend this for if you do like YA mystery thrillers. And then I have 2 more books here, and they were both 5 stars. First book was Heartstopper Volume 1. I don't know what took me so long to read this, but I loved it. So good. I already have the second one. I actually plan on reading it today. And yeah, highly recommend that graphic novel if you have not read it. I really, really enjoyed it. Now I know what the hype is all about. And then last one is probably one of my favorite books of the month, I would say, and that was Tokyo Ever After by Emiko Jean. And I really enjoyed that one. It was like The Princess Diaries, except like more modern, I would say. And I really enjoyed that one. It was a Reese's YA book club, and I have had good luck with the books that are chosen for that. I'm so glad I finally got to it. And yeah, she found out her dad is a prince. So that's why I said it was like that movie. And I really enjoyed it. I'm very glad that that was my last book of the month. And yeah, if you have any questions about any of these books, or if you've read any of these books, definitely let me know. And I always like to share my favorite book of the month, and I also would like to know your favorite book of the month. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, definitely like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.